It was just another Tuesday. The sun peeked through the blinds of the quaint corner cafe. Regulars sipped their drinks, the hum of early conversation filling the room. But one table stood still, her coffee sat half full, steam fading. She never returned for it. Moments later, she was gone. No struggle, no sound, just vanished. And what came next would leave an entire town questioning everything they thought they knew. Melissa Avery was a creature of habit. Every morning at 7:15 a.m., she'd walk into Copper Bean Cafe, order a medium vanilla latte, and sit by the window. She'd scroll through emails, then head to her job at the downtown law office. A 34-year-old paralegal, Melissa was known for her punctuality, her kindness, and her almost obsessive routine. She lived alone in a third-floor apartment just 2 blocks from the cafe. Friends described her as dependable, predictable, the last person you'd expect to just disappear. On April 12, 2023, that predictability shattered. Security footage showed Melissa entering the cafe at 7:14 a.m., right on schedule. She ordered her lot, sat in her usual spot. At 7:23, she received a text. She looked concerned, glanced over her shoulder, then stood up and walked out, leaving her coffee behind. She never made it to work. She never returned home. She vanished in broad daylight, in one of the safest neighborhoods in Portland. At first, police assumed it was voluntary, a woman choosing to walk away from her life. But that theory didn't hold for long. Melissa didn't pack a bag. She left her wallet, her keys, even her cat, Willow, at home. Her apartment was untouched. No signs of struggle. No fingerprints out of place. Nothing was missing except her. Her phone pinged once more at 7:29 a.m., less than 6 blocks from the cafe. Then it went dead. The final text she received, the one she read before standing up, came from a blocked number. It simply said, "He's not who you think he is." No one knew whose. Not her coworkers. Not her friends. Not even her sister, Laura, who had spoken to Melissa just the night before. But it was enough to change everything. Police reviewed street cams. One caught a brief, blurry glimpse of Melissa near Jefferson and Pine, 2 blocks from where her phone last pinged. A man in a dark hoodie seemed to be walking just a few paces behind her. His face was never clearly visible. Investigators canvassed the area. No one remembered seeing anything unusual. No one heard screams. No car screeching away. It was like she had evaporated into thin air. Then, 5 days later, the first break. A local jogger found something half buried in Forest Hill Park, nearly 8 miles from where Melissa disappeared. Her scarf, torn, dirty, with a single spot of dried blood. But no body, no footprints, no other evidence, nothing. As the media swarmed the case, theories exploded online. A secret lover? A stalker? A criminal client from her legal work? The Avery family kept things private until Melissa's sister, Laura, spoke out. According to Laura, Melissa had been acting strange for about 2 weeks. She'd grown withdrawn, jumpy. And there was one thing Laura never told the police until now. Melissa had confided in her that someone had been following her. A man, wore a dark cap, always in the distance. Always just far enough away that she couldn't prove it. She even believed her apartment had been broken into. But nothing was taken. Police rechecked the building's security footage. And that's when things got darker. At 3:12 a.m., 4 days before Melissa vanished, a figure in a hoodie was seen entering the lobby. He avoided the cameras. Never took the elevator. But 30 minutes later, he exited, carrying a backpack. Melissa never reported the break-in. Maybe she was too scared. Or maybe she knew who it was. 2 weeks into the investigation, a man came forward. Dylan Griggs, 37, claims to have been dating Melissa for the past 6 months. Her friends were stunned. She never mentioned him. Never brought him to events. Her coworkers said Melissa often stayed late, never once saying it was for someone named Dylan. When asked why she kept the relationship secret, Dylan hesitated. She said it wasn't safe, that if people found out, things could get bad. "I thought she was being paranoid." Police dug into Dylan's background. What they found shocked everyone. He wasn't who he claimed to be. Dylan Griggs didn't exist. The name was fake. The man calling himself Dylan had used a stolen identity. And he had a criminal record under his real name, Eric Dane, convicted twice for stalking and harassment in another state. But by the time police got a warrant to search his apartment, he was gone. Eric Dane had vanished too. 3 weeks after Melissa Avery walked out of the cafe and disappeared, a hiker discovered something deep in the woods, 20 miles outside Portland. A small, dirt-covered box. Inside, a phone. Bloodstained. It belonged to Melissa. And on it, one final, unsent text message. If anything happens to me, it was him. Who was him? Where did Eric Dane go? And what secret was Melissa hiding that was worth disappearing for? She was terrified, and no one listened. Her friends told her she was overthinking. Her sister said to get a camera. Even the cops brushed her off when she reported footsteps in the hall that never showed up on tape. But Melissa knew. She knew someone was watching. And now all that's left is a blood-stained phone in a box in the woods, and a single message she never got to send. If anything happens to me, it was him. But who was him? The answer would unravel everything. And what police discovered next turned a missing person case into something far more sinister. After finding Melissa's phone, investigators swarmed the wooded area with dogs and drones. For 2 days, they searched in 10-mile circles. No body, no personal items, nothing. But the phone had one clue. A hidden folder of encrypted messages, texts Melissa exchanged with someone saved only as R. The texts were fragmented, emotional, and clearly filled with tension. One message stood out. I told you I want out. If you come near me again, I swear I'll go to the cops. The timestamp, 1 week before she disappeared. Suddenly, everything shifted. Dylan Griggs, Eric Dane, might not have been the threat. He might have been trying to protect her. And now he was missing too. That's when Laura Avery, Melissa's sister, did something police didn't expect. She handed over an old journal. Something Melissa had kept hidden for years. It wasn't a diary. It was more like a map of paranoia. Names, places, symbols, and timelines. She had been tracking someone. At the center of it all was one name, Robert Lane. Melissa had circled his name in red ink. Drew arrows from it to terms like control, cover up, and, most hauntingly, the accident. Who was Robert Lane? A quick search told detectives everything they needed to know and didn't want to believe. Robert Lane was Melissa's former boss. A senior partner at the law firm where she worked. Powerful, well-connected, untouchable. On the surface, Lane had no connection to her current life. But 2 years ago, they worked a case together that never made it to trial. An industrial cover-up involving a tech company accused of illegal dumping. The case was abruptly dismissed. Whistleblowers silenced. Melissa never mentioned it to anyone. Until now. As police tried to subpoena records from the law firm, things got complicated. Calls stopped being returned. Legal blocks appeared. Files went missing. Even her laptop, recovered from her apartment, had been wiped remotely. Someone didn't want this case reopened. And suddenly, the pressure on the investigation shifted. Federal agents stepped in, but not to help. Detective Maria Torres, who had been leading the case, was pulled off without warning. Her replacement? An internal affairs officer with zero homicide experience. The Avery family's pleas were falling on deaf ears. Melissa wasn't just a missing woman now. She was a problem, a liability, a threat to people with the power to make entire stories vanish. But one person refused to let it go. 3 weeks after he vanished, Eric Dane, using a burner phone, called a local news station. He wanted to talk. Off the record, a reporter met him in a public park, wearing a wire. What Eric said blew the entire case wide open. He admitted he and Melissa were in a relationship, but it was more than that. They were building a case together. A secret file on Robert Lane and the corrupted legal system they'd both been part of. Melissa had discovered that the accidental death of a factory employee tied to their old case had been staged. She believed Robert Lane was responsible. And worse, she had proof. Proof that now no one could find. Eric told the reporter they had hidden everything, documents, video, phone recordings, in a storage unit under Melissa's name. But when he went to check after she disappeared, the place had been cleared out. No paper trail. No footage. Not even a record the unit ever existed. They erased her, Eric said. They're trying to erase me too. He went underground that night, and hasn't been seen since. While the system stalled, Laura took matters into her own hands. She started a blog, posting everything, Melissa's messages, the phone discovery, Eric's claims. She used her sister's notes and began naming names. The posts went viral. People started talking. Other former employees of Robert Lane's firm came forward, anonymously, with their own stories of fear and coercion. One even claimed he was paid off after witnessing a late-night fight in Lane's office that left someone bleeding. The case wasn't just about Melissa anymore. It was about a pattern, a network of silence and intimidation. And Melissa? She may have been the first one to try and break it, but she wouldn't be the last. In a tearful live stream watched by over 2 million viewers, Laura said, "My sister wasn't paranoid. She was smart. She didn't run. She fought. And she died for it." The message was clear and devastating. Melissa had spent her final months trying to do the right thing in a world built to reward the wrong people. And in doing so, she may have sealed her fate. But even in death, she was winning. 2 months after her disappearance, a construction crew outside the city unearthed a rusted metal toolbox buried beneath a concrete slab. Inside, a flash drive, a stained blouse, later confirmed to be Melissa's, and a photo, crumpled, faded. The photo was of Melissa standing beside Robert Lane, smiling, but behind them, barely visible, stood a mirror. In that mirror, reflected just enough to see, was the face of another man, Eric Dane. So why did Melissa say she didn't trust him? Why did she say it was him in her final text? Unless she wasn't talking about Eric. Unless the real him was someone much closer. Someone watching them both the entire time. For 72 days, Melissa Avery was a ghost. A whisper. A question mark. People lit candles. Posted hashtags. Prayed for answers. But now, the truth is staring back. From a broken photo, a bloodied blouse, and a reflection that changed everything. She tried to warn us. Her final words were clear. If anything happens to me, it was him. And she was right. Just not in the way anyone expected. The discovery of the photo buried in the toolbox flipped the case on its head. At first glance, it was just a snapshot. Melissa at a firm gala, beside Robert Lane, smiling under string lights. But in the mirror behind them stood Eric Dane. The man everyone believed had fled. The man Melissa once feared, or so it seemed. But when forensic analysts examined the photo's timestamp and compared it to guest logs from the event, something didn't line up. Eric Dane wasn't invited. He was never supposed to be there. So why was he standing just feet from Melissa and Lane? And more importantly, why did Melissa's expression, once believed to be a smile, turn out to be a grimace upon closer digital enhancement? Like she was scared, cornered, pretending. Then came the email. An encrypted message sent to Detective Maria Torres, who had been unofficially continuing the case even after being pulled from it. The subject line read, "I was there. I know what happened." Attached was a video file. Grainy, but enough to make stomachs turn. It showed a closed-door meeting from 2 years ago. Melissa, Robert Lane. Another man, partially off-frame, now confirmed to be Eric Dane. The conversation was tense. "Melissa, this isn't right. People are dying and we're sitting on evidence." "Lane, you were paid to do your job, not to grow a conscience." "Eric, quietly, she's right. We need to tell someone." "Lane, you do that, and neither of you walk out of this office the same." That meeting took place 6 days before a key witness in the tech dumping case was found dead in his apartment. Ruled a suicide. No autopsy. Until now. Detective Torres demanded a review of the deceased whistleblower's body. Against all odds, it was still in cold storage due to a family dispute over cremation. An independent autopsy revealed what the original report missed, or ignored. bruising on the neck, defensive wounds on the arms. The man didn't take his own life. He was silenced. And the killer? That would soon become painfully clear. Forensic investigators found a partial print on the man's shirt collar, preserved under a fold. It matched a government fingerprint database. Eric Dane. Everything made sense now. Melissa wasn't in love. She was being hunted. Eric wasn't her partner, he was her handler. A former informant used by Lane to manage leaks. A man who got close to those who knew too much. Melissa found out too late. She tried to escape. She tried to document everything. And when she refused to stay silent, she vanished. Laura Avery was inconsolable. The man she had defended online, the man she called Melissa's only ally, was the same man who orchestrated her disappearance. But why bury the photo? Why the flash drive? Why the dramatic setup? Because Eric thought he could control the story, disappear long enough to re-emerge as a whistleblower, painting himself as the hero, a savior, while Lane took the fall. But the mirror exposed him. And now, the hunt was on. The break came through a coffee shop in Spokane, Washington. A barista recognized Eric Dane from the viral blog posts Laura had made. She called it in. An FBI task force descended on a rural rental cabin the next morning. Inside, Eric was armed, paranoid, ready for a fight. But he never got the chance. A single negotiator's phrase broke him. Melissa kept the real flash drive. And we have it. That was a lie. But it worked. He dropped the gun, collapsed, and whispered, "It was supposed to be Lane." In custody, Eric confessed everything. The manipulation, the surveillance, the night he followed her from the cafe, how she begged him not to hurt her, how he didn't listen. But it wasn't Robert Lane who gave the order. Eric claimed he acted alone. Except, in the final moments of his interrogation, he said one last thing. "She was going to take us both down. I had no choice." With Eric in custody, the case against Robert Lane reopened. Subpoenas flew. Hard drives resurfaced. Former employees lined up to testify. Turns out, Melissa had sent copies of her findings to a legal watchdog group weeks before she vanished. They sat unread, buried under spam filters and bureaucracy. Until now. The flash drive was real. It did exist. It contained signed documents, email threads, even audio of Lane discussing payouts and blackmail. The evidence was undeniable. Lane was arrested in his office, still in his tailored suit, sipping imported scotch. When asked for comment, he smiled and said, "She was just a secretary." The courtroom gasped when the prosecution played Melissa's voice on tape. "One day, someone will believe me. And when they do, this all ends." The trial was swift, emotional, public. Melissa's story, once silenced, was now a national headline. Eric Dane was sentenced to life without parole for murder, obstruction of justice, and witness tampering. Robert Lane received 35 years for conspiracy, corporate fraud, and manslaughter. But justice wasn't